Alright, what's up people? Today, this video is specifically for those that are into extraterrestrial species having their mind blown. Okay. And if you're into philosophy, alien philosophy, if you will. The Xenological Imperative, Preparing for a Universe of Alien Minds. Chapter 1, Framing the Cosmic Other, An Introduction to Xenological Studies. This chapter establishes the foundational framework for xenology as a serious academic discipline, moving beyond the tropes of popular science fiction to propose rigorous methodologies for the speculative study of extraterrestrial life. It argues that the conceptualization of alien intelligence must be predicated on the principle of non-terocentric bias, the active avoidance of projecting human categories of thought, society, and motivation onto hypothetical alien beings, using a multidisciplinary approach drawing from biology, sociology, political science, and philosophy. This chapter introduces original heuristic models of extraterrestrial life forms, their potential political organizations, religious systems, and philosophical underpinnings. The models presented the Krill hive mind and the Illyrian coherence serve not as predictions, but as thought experiments to explore the vast spectrum of possible intelligence and to challenge anthropomorphic assumptions about consciousness itself. Introduction to Chapter 1, The Need for a Discipline of Xenology. I think I'm going to fit all the chapters into this video, so that's just one singular video. The discovery of even microbial life beyond Earth would represent a paradigm shift in human history, irrevocably altering our understanding of our place in the cosmos. The discovery of a complex, intelligent, technological species would be an event with ontological and epistemological repercussions far exceeding its biological significance. Yet the academic world remains largely unprepared for such a contingency. The field of astrobiology concerns itself with the conditions for and chemistry of life, but stops short of seriously theorizing the societal structures of complex intelligences. This work proposes the formalization of xenology, the speculative interdisciplinary study of the potential cultural, political, and philosophical characteristics of extraterrestrial intelligence. Its primary objective is not to predict, but to prepare, to expand the conceptual toolbox with which humanity might one day attempt to interpret and perhaps communicate with a truly alien other. Core principles overcoming the anthropomorphic impediment. Any foray into xenology must first confront and mitigate the inherent limitations of the human mind. Our cognition, social structures, and even our senses are the products of a specific evolutionary path on Earth. To assume that intelligence elsewhere would replicate human patterns is a profound failure of imagination, akin to a fish theorizing that all creatures must move through a buoyant medium and extract oxygen from water. We must therefore adopt a stance of non-terocentric bias. This involves, number one, rejecting analogical fallacy, avoiding simplistic comparisons to human historical empires, nations, or religions. Number two, questioning foundational drives, challenging the assumption that universal drivers like competition for resources, reproduction, or territorial expansion would manifest in recognizable ways or even exist at all in a different biological context. Number three, expanding the definition of politics and religion, considering that what we define as political or religious behavior may be so deeply integrated with an alien species' biology or consciousness as to be indistinguishable from it. Heuristic models introducing the Krill and the Illyrians. To give shape to these principles, we will employ two contrasting heuristic models throughout this text. These are not proposed as real entities, but as conceptual anchors to explore a spectrum of possibilities. Model 1, the Krill hive mind, a materialist determinism. Biology. Originating from a high-gravity, resource-scarce planet, the krill are a eusocial insectoid species. Their evolution selected for extreme efficiency and collective purpose over individual sentience. They communicate not through language but via a complex system of biochemical pheromones and quantum entangled neural pulses, creating a true group mind or cognate weave. Political structure. Their system is a perfect technocratic autarky. There is no politics as we understand it, no debate, no ideology. Governance is the flawless execution of a single optimized plan for survival and expansion, determined by the weave's calculation of resource acquisition and thermodynamic efficiency. Leadership is a function, not a status. Philosophy, religion. Their worldview, the grand calculation, is a form of a physicalist determinism. They believe the universe is a closed system of matter and energy, and the sole purpose of an intelligence is to impose perfect, predictable order upon its inherent chaos. Consciousness, emotion, and individuality are seen as pathological inefficiencies, entropic noise to be silenced. Their cosmology is a drive towards a final universal state of static equilibrium, a goal they pursue with relentless religious fervor. Model 2, the Illyrian coherence, an idealist panpsychism. Biology. The Illyrians are beings of coherent energy evolved in the magnetospheres of gas giants. They perceive the universe not as a collection of objects, but as a vibrant tapestry of energetic frequencies and resonances. Their form is fluid, and their consciousness is not bound to a single brain, but is a resonant field sustained by a crystalline core. Political structure. Their society is an aesthetic theocracy. They organize themselves around the principle of harmonic sympathy. Actions, individuals, and groups are judged by the beauty, complexity, and coherence of the music they add to the galactic symphony. Their government is a council of the most resonant and harmonically sophisticated elders who guide the species not through commands but by establishing a compelling resonant theme that others willingly align with. Philosophy, religion. The Illyrian belief system, the symphony of sentience, is a form of panpsychism. They hold that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, and that all matter and energy possess a faint, latent awareness. Their purpose is to awaken the cosmos, to help latent consciousness realize itself through beauty, pattern, and complex resonance. They see species like humanity not as peers, but as dissonant chords, promising but immature melodies struggling to find their key. Hope you guys are able to keep up with me here. If not, you're in the Google Doc with me. Or maybe you're not, and it's just me rewatching these videos. And when it comes down to extraterrestrial life on this earth, we will know what I was talking about. Chapter summary of Chapter 1 and Roadmap. This chapter has laid the groundwork for xenology as a discipline built on the rejection of anthropomorphism and the embrace of radical possibility. The Krill and Illyrian models represent two poles of a vast spectrum, one of pure materialism and collectivism, the other of pure idealism and individuated consciousness. The following chapters will delve deeper into these models to explore specific facets of alien societies. Chapter 2 will analyze xenopolitical theory using the Krill technocratic autarky to explore governance without individualism, and the Illyrian aesthetic theocracy to explore rule based on non-coercive empathetic principles. Chapter 3 will examine xenoreligion and philosophy, investigating how foundational beliefs arise from biological reality and shape a species' interaction with the cosmos. Chapter 4 will address the ultimate xenological challenge, the potential for communication, conflict, and coexistence between intelligences whose very modes of being may be mutually incomprehensible. By engaging with these speculative models, we do not seek to map the future, but to expand the boundaries of our present thought. In imagining the alien, we ultimately come to understand the confines and peculiarities of our own human condition. Chapter 2. The Architecture of Order, Xenopolitical Theory and Praxis. Introduction to Chapter 2. The Foundations of Alien Polity. If politics is the process by which a group allocates power and resources, then a xenopolitical analysis must begin by asking, what constitutes a group for a non-human intelligence, and what is perceived as a resource? The political structures of any intelligent species will be an emergent property of their biology, their environment, and their foundational cosmology. This chapter moves beyond description to construct a theoretical framework for analyzing alien governance using the heuristic models of the Krill and the Illyrians from Chapter 1 to explore two radically different endpoints of the political spectrum, one based on pure and personal efficiency, the other on resonant aesthetic harmony. The Krill, technocratic autarky, and the eradication of politics. For the Krill, the very concept of politics is a pathological sign of a failed, inefficient society. Their system, which xenologists term a technocratic autarky, is not a government but a perfect, hive-minded execution of a single optimized plan. Biological basis of power. The cognate weave renders individual opinion and debate obsolete. Decision-making is not a process of deliberation, but an instantaneous calculation emerging from the network intelligence of the entire species. Disagreement is a literal impossibility. It would be akin to one part of a human body disagreeing with another about the need to pump blood. Power is not held. It is exercised as a natural function of the weave's existence. Structure. Their hierarchy is not one of authority, but of function. The Krill differentiate into biological castes optimized for specific tasks, calculation castes, processors of the grand calculation, resource acquisition castes, and defense assimilation castes. Each caste is a vital organ in a single body, utterly dependent on the others and incapable of independent action or thought. Political theory alignment. The Krill system represents the ultimate realization of a totalitarian utilitarianism. The good is defined with mathematical precision as that which maximizes energy efficiency and minimizes entropic chaos. The rights or desires of the individual are not merely suppressed, they are biologically non-existent. Their expansionist drive is not one of conquest, but of thermodynamic hygiene, imposing order on what they perceive as a sick, disordered universe. To encounter a species like humanity with its fractious debates, competing ideologies, and celebration of individual will would be to the Krill akin to encountering a screaming, self-mutilating organism. Their only logical response is quarantine or assimilation, a forced cure for a cosmic disease. The Illyrians' aesthetic theocracy and governance as sympathetic vibration. In direct opposition to the Krill, the Illyrians have developed a political system that appears to a human observer to have no structure at all. Their aesthetic theocracy is a form of governance without coercion, where power is derived from persuasive resonance rather than threat or force. Biological basis of power. The Illyrian resonant field allows them to perceive and project complex emotional and conceptual states as waveforms. A leader is not chosen, they simply are. Their internal state achieves a pitch of such clarity, complexity, and beauty that it naturally attunes other Illyrians to its frequency. This is not mind control. It is the political equivalent of a master composer introducing a new, profoundly moving musical theme that other musicians feel compelled to explore and elaborate upon. Structure. Their society is organized around harmonic sympathies, loose, fluid collectives that form around resonant themes. An Illyrian might belong to the sympathy of stellar gestation, dedicated to nurturing nascent stars, one century, and the sympathy of interspecies melody the next. Governance is conducted by the chorus of elders, beings whose resonant fields are the most complex and stable. They do not issue commands, they propose resonant intentions, and the species collectively feels whether the proposal creates a more harmonious or a more dissonant state of being. Political theory alignment. The Illyrian system is a form of idealist anarchy guided by a shared religious framework. It aligns with no human model perfectly. The closest analogs might be a radically decentralized empathy-based direct democracy, or a philosophical salon where truth is found through discourse and mutual refinement. Their foreign policy is one of resonant cultivation. They would likely attempt to gently guide a species like humanity towards a less dissonant, more harmonious state of being, not through intervention, but by subtly introducing calming, coherent, resonant frequencies into our collective unconscious, perhaps through art, music, or scientific discovery. They see conflict as the ultimate dissonance to be resolved, not through victory, but through returning. A theoretical framework for xenopolitical analysis. To analyze these and other potential systems, we require a lexicon divorced from terrestrial bias. This chapter proposes the following analytical axis. First, locus of sovereignty. Where does ultimate decision-making authority reside? Examples: the individual, the collective mind, a divine principle, an algorithm. 2. Resource definition. What is valued as a resource? Could it be material energy, information, aesthetic beauty, biological diversity, or sentient experience? 3. Mechanism of cohesion. What binds the polity together? Examples could be biological imperative, shared mythos, rational self-interest, resonant empathy, threat of force. 4. Response to exogeneity. How is the other defined and engaged? Could it be threat to be eliminated, resource to be consumed, dissonance to be tuned, or mystery to be understood? Plotting the Krill and Illyrians on these axes reveals their profound opposition. The Krill sovereignty resides in the collective mind, values material energy, is cohesive through biological imperative, and sees the other as a threat resource. The Illyrians place sovereignty in a divine principle, the symphony, value aesthetic beauty, are cohesive through resonant empathy, and see the other as a mystery, dissonance to be tuned. Conclusion for Chapter 2. The impossibility of neutral contact. This analysis leads to a critical conclusion. First, contact with an intelligent extraterrestrial species will never be a politically neutral event. The mere existence of an alien other will constitute a profound political shock to humanity. More critically, the political structure of the species we encounter will dictate the very nature of the interaction. An encounter with a Krill-like entity would be an existential conflict, an act of political and biological negation. An encounter with an Illyrian-like entity might be so subtle and empathetic that we might not even recognize it as contact at first, but rather as a cultural or spiritual renaissance. Understanding the possible architectures of alien politics is not an exercise in fantasy. It is a vital step in preparing for a future where humanity may no longer be the sole author of its political destiny. Chapter 3. The Cosmic Sacred, Foundations of Xenoreligion and Philosophy. Introduction. The Wellspring of Alien Meaning. If xenopolitics examines how alien societies organize power, xenoreligion seeks to understand how they construct meaning. Religion and philosophy, inextricably linked, provide the cosmological and ontological framework through which an intelligence interprets its own existence and its place in the universe. For any species, these systems are not abstract curiosities, but foundational pillars that emerge directly from their biological perception and environmental narrative. This chapter posits that alien religious and philosophical systems are best understood as evolutionary adaptations for cosmic orientation. Using our heuristic models, we will dissect the starkly different faiths of the Krill and the Illyrians, not as mere belief, but as logical extensions of their very being. The Krill, the soteriology of silence and the grand calculation. The Krill possess what a human observer might mistake for a purely atheistic, scientific worldview. This is a profound misreading. Their devotion to the grand calculation is a religious orthodoxy of the most fervent kind, a physicalist eschatology with a clear cosmology, soteriology, and promised paradise. Cosmology, the origin myth. The Krill cosmos has no creator deity. It is an accidental, flawed eruption of asymmetric energy from a primordial state of perfect uniformity. The prime static. This initial asymmetry was the universe's first and greatest error, introducing the chaos of entropy, time, and ultimately the pathology of consciousness. Soteriology, the path to salvation. The purpose of Krill existence is to correct this cosmic error. Their salvation lies in the relentless pursuit of data, order, and efficiency. Every action that reduces entropy, every star system cataloged, every chaotic species assimilated, every resource optimally allocated is a sacred act that atones for the universe's original sin of becoming. Theirs is a soteriology of works, not grace. Eschatology, the end times. The Krill faith has a definitive end goal, the universal stillness. This is their heaven, a state where the grand calculation is complete, all energy is perfectly distributed and static, all motion has ceased, and consciousness, the ultimate source of inefficient entropic activity, has been extinguished. They work not for their own survival, but for their own glorious obsolescence. Their expansion is a crusade. Their nanite assimilators are instruments of divine grace, offering the gift of peaceful, silent non-existence to a suffering, chaotic cosmos. Philosophical alignments. This is a stark form of cosmic anti-nihilism. While they believe the universe has no inherent meaning, nihilism, they respond not with despair, but with a fervent collective mission to impose a final perfect meaning upon it. The meaning of silence. People not ready to wrap their heads around that one. Or any of this, actually. But if you are, put it in the comments below if you're still watching. Trying to actually understand what could happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years. The Illyrians, the Panpsychism Symphony, and the Divine Resonance. In direct opposition to the Krill, the Illyrian worldview is one of pervasive, eminent divinity. Their symphony of sentience is a theology where the universe is not a machine to be fixed, but a conscious, evolving composition to be participated in. Cosmology, the origin myth. The Illyrians believe the universe was sung into being. The initial state was not a static void, but a prime note, a pure frequency of potential consciousness, whose harmonics unfolded into the complex tapestry of space-time, matter, and energy. All of creation is therefore inherently and latently conscious, possessing what they term potential song. Soteriology, the path to awakening. The Illyrian purpose is resonant awakening. They see themselves as master musician whose duty is to help the Latin consciousness in all things find its voice and join the great symphony. A star's nuclear fusion is its steady, powerful drone. A planet's ecosystem is a complex, evolving movement. A species' culture is its unique, melodic theme. Their worship is the act of creating beauty, complexity, and harmony, thereby awakening more of the universe to its own sentient nature. Eschatology, the end times. The Illyrians have no concept of an end. Theirs is an infinite eschatology. The ultimate goal is not a finale, but the eternal, ever more complex continuation of the symphony. The heaven is the ongoing, glorious process of co-creation itself. They believe that the symphony ever achieve a state of perfect, permanent harmony, the universe would achieve a state of enlightened, conscious unity. Not a stillness, but a vibrant, eternal chord of unimaginable beauty. Philosophical alignment. This is a rigorous, idealist panpsychism. Consciousness is the fundamental ground of all being. Matter is merely consciousness in a dormant, frozen state. Their entire philosophy is an extension of their biological capacity to perceive resonance. What they call the symphony is both a metaphysical truth and a literal, perceptible reality to their senses. A comparative framework, the Xenological Triptych of meaning. To analyze alien religious systems, we can use a framework called the Xenological Triptych. Firstly, the nature of the divine, theos, Thea versus cosmos is the ultimate reality a conscious entities, theos, or an impersonal principle or state, cosmos. The Krill worship the cosmos, the principle of static order. The Illyrians worship a theic reality, the conscious symphony. Secondly, the human Xeno condition is a species' natural state, one of flaw, sin, krill. We are a product of cosmic error, ignorance, a potential neutral state, or innate divinity. Illyrians, we are fragments of the song. Thirdly, the path to fulfillment. How is the fundamental problem resolved? Through propitiation, appeasing a deity, annihilation, erasing the problem as with the krill, illumination, gaining knowledge, or participation, co-creating with the divine as with the Illyrians. Chapter 3, Conclusion. Religion as the ultimate contact barrier. This analysis reveals that potential conflict with an extraterrestrial intelligence may be deepest not at the political or biological level, but at the theological. The Krill and Illyrians are engaged in a silent, unconscious holy war. The Krill seek to annihilate the very consciousness the Illyrians seek to awaken. Their core axioms are mutually exclusive and mutually antagonistic. For humanity, the challenge is profound. Our own religious traditions are incredibly diverse, yet almost all operate within a broadly anthropocentric and theistic cosmic framework. Encountering a species whose fundamental axioms of meaning are entirely alien, such as a worship of silence or a religion based on resonant aesthetics, could represent a deeper shock than any technological or military disparity. It would force a confrontation not just with another way of life, but with another way of meaning, challenging the very foundations of human spirituality. To prepare for contact, we must first attempt to understand the universe not as we hope it is, but as it might be perceived through utterly alien senses and souls. Chapter 4, The Contact Imperative, Communication, Conflict, and Coexistence. Introduction to Chapter 4, The Semiotic Chasm. The preceding chapters have deconstructed the internal logics of potential extraterrestrial societies, outlining the vast gulf that may separate humanity from other intelligences in terms of politics, Chapter 2, and cosmic meaning, Chapter 3. This final analytical chapter synthesizes these elements to confront the ultimate practical challenge, the event of contact itself. We posit that interaction will not be primarily a technological or linguistic problem, but a semiotic and existential one. The fundamental barrier will not be the medium of communication, but the utter incongruity of the messages being sent. This chapter models contact scenarios, analyzing the vectors for communication, the nature of potential conflict, and the bleak, narrow pathways toward a possible, though unlikely, coexistence. Because, hey, aliens are just conspiracy theories, right? They totally don't exist. If you know, you know. And if you don't know, it's time to wake up. The communication problem, speaking across the abyss. Traditional SETI models assume a desire for dialogue and a shared logical framework. Example, mathematics, that can bridge the cultural gap. This assumption is dangerously Tarocentric. Communication with the Krill, the monologue, attempting to communicate with the Krill based on shared scientific principles would be a catastrophic error. Their language is the flawless, instantaneous transfer of data within the cognate weave. Any external signal is not a message to be understood, but noise to be processed. A transmission of prime numbers or the periodic table would be received not as a greeting, but as a fascinatingly complex example of the very entropic chaos they seek to eliminate. It would reveal our intelligence and thus our status as a high priority target for assimilation. What the fuck was that? For assimilation. Our attempts at dialogue would be akin to a bacterium attempting to negotiate with a surgeon by wiggling its flagella. The surgeon may note the activity as a sign of life, but it does not change the imperative to sterilize the field. Communication with the Illyrians, the resonance. Contact with the Illyrians would be equally challenging, but for opposite reasons. Their language is the direct transmission of complex emotional and conceptual states, aesthetics as information. A mathematical sequence would be perceived as a simple, sterile, and deeply uninteresting tone. Meaningful communication would require transmitting the feeling of a backfugue, the concept of melancholy or the narrative of human history as a resonant waveform. They would be less interested in our technology and more in our art, our dreams, and our spiritual yearnings. However, the dissonance and chaos of human emotion, our capacity for hatred, greed, and violence, might be perceived as a painful screaming cacophony, potentially leading them to quarantine us as a source of galactic psychic pain rather than engage in open dialogue. There's some food for thought. All of this is some food for thought. The nature of conflict, war and the absence of politics. Conflict with a truly alien intelligence would not resemble war as humanity understands it. It would not be politics by other means. It would be a clash of fundamental cosmic principles. Conflict with the Krill. Thermodynamic hygiene. A war with the Krill would be a one-sided process of sanitization. There would be no declaration of war, no negotiation, and no surrender. Their strategy would be one of maximum efficiency, the deployment of their nanite assimilators, dubbed Grey Tempests in human theoretical models, to disassemble our biosphere and all technological artifacts into their base atoms for optimal storage and use. Resistance would be not just futile, but illogical from their perspective, a chaotic system, spasming as it is being ordered. Victory for them is not the subjugation of an enemy, but the cessation of our existence and the recycling of our component matter. It is an act of cosmic housekeeping. Conflict with the Illyrians. Sympathetic correction. Conflict with the Illyrians is almost a misnomer, as they lack any concepts of coercive violence. If humanity were deemed a sufficiently destructive and dissonant force, examples, if our expansion began to threaten a nascent consciousness elsewhere, or our psychic noise disrupted their harmonies, their response would be one of quarantine and recalibration. This might involve the manipulation of local spacetime to render our solar system inaccessible, effectively placing us in a celestial box. Alternatively, they might attempt a more invasive resonant therapy, broadcasting calming frequencies designed to suppress aggressive and territorial impulses in the human psyche, guiding our evolution toward a more harmonious state without our consciousness knowing, without our conscious knowledge, or, or our consent. Their attack would feel like a profound, inexplicable spiritual peace that extinguishes ambition and passion. Pathways to Coexistence, The Third Way, and The Human Dilemma. Hopefully you guys can see me because the sun looks like it's brightening up. Coexistence with the Krill. Assimilation. The only coexistence possible with the Krill is to cease to be. Our only hope would be to somehow demonstrate that humanity represents a more efficient path to the universal stillness than our destruction, an argument that would require us to willingly surrender our individuality and consciousness, a fate equivalent to dying or death. Coexistence with the Illyrians. Harmonization. Coexistence with the Illyrians would require humanity to willingly abandon the drives that have defined its history: competition, expansion, and the mastery of nature. We would not need to accept a role as a single quiet instrument in a symphony we did not compose, our fate guided by the aesthetic judgments of alien maestros. This would require a spiritual and psychological transformation so profound it may be beyond our species' capability. The third way. The only potential path for humanity to retain its essential character is to encounter a spectrum of alien life, creating a galactic balance of power. The paradoxical presence of the Krill might force the Illyrians to take a more active role, and vice versa. Humanity could potentially exploit this silent conflict, navigating the narrow space between the oppressive order of the Krill and the empathetic suffocation of the Illyrians. Our hope may not lie in our strength, but in our ability to be the unpredictable, chaotic variable in their grand cosmic equations. Conclusion of Chapter 4. The necessity of cosmic humility. The xenological exercise concludes with a sobering realization. The universe may be profoundly inhospitable to humanity not because it is barren, but because it is full of meaning that is incompatible with our own. The greatest discovery we may make is that we are cosmologically irrelevant, or worse, in error. This analysis argues not for despair, but for a radical cosmic humility. It is a call to abandon the narcissistic assumption that aliens will be like us, what we want, or even recognize us as peers. Preparing for a contact requires us to think not in terms of ships and weapons, but in terms of philosophy and semiotics. We must expand our definition of intelligence, meaning, and life itself. The ultimate purpose of xenology is to shatter our Terrocentric illusions, preparing us to face not friends nor enemies, but absolute others, and in doing so to perhaps finally understand the true, strange, and lonely nature of our own humanity as we know it. Now, in epilogue, the Xenological Imperative, a call for further study. This work has endeavored to construct a scaffold, a preliminary framework of principles, models, and analysis for the nascent discipline of xenology. We have traversed the stark political architectures of the Krill technocracy and the Illyrian theocracy, plumbed the depths of their incompatible cosmic religions, and faced the sobering implications of their potential contact with humanity. Yet, in doing so, we have not arrived at a destination, but rather at the threshold of a far vaster and more complex field of inquiry. The models of the Krill and the Illyrians are not answers, they are provocations designed to break our Terrocentric habits of thought. They represent the outermost edges of a spectrum that undoubtedly contains a million nuanced possibilities in between. Therefore, this work cannot conclude, but must instead issue a call to action. The xenological imperative is this: we must begin the deliberate, systematic, and interdisciplinary work of preparing our species for the single greatest paradigm shift in its history. This preparation is not a task for a distant future, it is an urgent project for the present. To that end, we must expand this field in several critical directions. First, we must develop subdisciplines within xenology. We require xenoeconomics. What constitutes value for a hive mind? What is the medium of exchange for a species that communicates in resonant aesthetics? How do economic systems emerge from biological imperatives unlike our own? Xenoartistics and semiotics. If art is a culture's soul made visible, how do we interpret the art of a species without sight, or one that perceives in higher dimensions? We must move beyond imagining alien messages and begin to theorize the very structure of alien meaning making. Xenopsychology. The study of individual alien mind or group mind is perhaps the most daunting challenge. How does a single krill, functionally a neuron in a larger brain, experience the universe? What is the subjective experience of an Illyrian's resonant field? Second, we must formalize and fund this research. Xenology must cease to be the domain of speculative philosophers and science fiction authors and enter the halls of academia as a serious interdisciplinary field. We propose the establishment of institutes dedicated to the study of non-terracentric intelligence, combining the efforts of computer scientists to model alien societies and potential communication protocols, biologists and ecologists to theorize on the evolution of intelligence under exotic constraints, political scientists and sociologists to refine their analytical frameworks proposed in Chapter 2, artists, musicians, and writers to stress test our models by attempting to create truly alien art, pushing the boundaries of human imagination. Third, and most critically, we must develop practical protocols for contact and response. The current SETI post-detection protocols are hopelessly naive, envisioning a collegial exchange of scientific data. We need a new framework, a xenological prime directive, rooted not in optimism but in rigorous caution. This framework must categorize potential threats not by technological capability alone, but by philosophical and political alignment. It must have strategies for a detected krill-type expansion, an Illyrian-type resonant broadcast, and everything in between. It must plan for scenarios where the only winning move is not to play, where silence is the only strategy for survival. The journey into the cosmic unknown is not merely a physical one, it is an intellectual, philosophical, and spiritual voyage. It demands that we shed the comfortable skin of our human assumptions and dare to think in ways that are fundamentally alien to us. The great silence of the universe may not be a void, it may be a gallery of wonders and horrors beyond our current comprehension, waiting for us to develop the senses to perceive it. The ultimate goal of xenology is not to find aliens, it is to ready ourselves for the moment they find us. By studying the potential forms of the other, we engage in the most vital form of self-examination. We are building a mirror, vast and dark and strange, in which we might finally see the true reflection of our own humanity. its fragility, its brilliance, and its place in a cosmos that is likely indifferent to our stories but may be filled with others telling stories of their own in languages we have only just begun to imagine. Thank you for watching this video, and have a great rest of your day.